proves is that legal cases are also a very powerful instrument, but it also shows them the power of people. These are 900 Dutch citizens, just normal citizens, okay? These are not famous people. These are 900 citizens that were concerned about the impact. So what do we know, Femi, about grassroots movements? What do we know about community and the role that they play in climate action?
There's so much more power than you know you have until you harness it. Before we move on, Christiana, I'm going to bring in one more voice, and this is the voice of Dennis Van Berkel, who we spoke to a little bit earlier. He is a lawyer and he leads a group of lawyers that keep governments accountable. Let's hear about their work before we move on.
Governments have promised us for decades that they will do what is necessary in order to prevent dangerous climate change, but their actions simply don't add up. There's a huge gap between what they say must be done, hold temperatures below 1.5 degrees, and what they're actually doing. And courts provide a unique forum to scrutinize the statements of governments, to scrutinize whether what governments are saying with regards to their actions on climate change actually add up and are sufficient in order to cumulatively protect us against all those dangerous impacts of climate change.
When activism merges with science, it's a very powerful formula, as we are about to find out. Dr. Tulula Oni is an urban epidemiologist who leads the Citizens for Clean Air campaign in Nigeria, Ghana and South Africa. Hello, Tolu. So good to have you. Tolu, I'm going to make a black girl blush, because when I first heard about you, I was like, she's dynamic, she's connecting, she's brilliant. How do you even live up to that? What is it that your mission is? What are you trying to do that takes you to at least 3 different countries on the African continent and getting citizen scientists to understand what's happening to their environment?
Thanks, Femi. I could say the same thing about you. What drives me is the fact that we have the youngest continent globally. Half of people on the African continent are 19 or under. When we talk about health, we should be talking about ways to keep young people healthy. Now, air pollution is particularly something that animates me, because it both is an important exposure that is important for health, but it's also very low-hanging fruit in terms of climate action, because we know a lot of the air pollutants are also greenhouse gases contributing to global warming. So I started seeing that, from a public health perspective, we understand the importance of public space and how to get people moving and be physically active for their health. But there are also these air pollution risks. And I started looking around and realizing we weren't really measuring it in these cities. At the same time, we saw this incredible passion and commitment to environmental justice and climate action in the cities. And I thought, what if we could get and harness this energy from the majority demographic on the continent to be part of the solution? Because we can't change what we don't measure. So what we're doing is exactly that. We are looking at the ways that we can emphasize a crucial role that young people can and should play in designing and developing and shaping the urban environments that we live in for both health and climate resilience.
Christiana.
Well, what I love about this, Jola, I've always thought that it is so important to humanize global climate change. And honestly, it's very difficult for people to understand that these fossil fuels emit gases that have a global impact. But it's much easier to understand that the very same fossil fuels also emit local pollutants that are affecting our lungs, especially in cities, as you say. And so the health and climate overlap is so critical because it makes it so much more understandable. I totally love that. Air quality really makes the pollution from fossil fuels so immediate. And I'm assuming, Tolu, but please tell us, that this has actually really energized young people, mothers who are concerned about the lungs of their children, who are concerned about the health of that their children are growing up with. This is something that goes absolutely to the very bottom of our own concern about our own health and the health of our children, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And Femi mentioned earlier about citizen science. So we had one of the really animating aspects of this initiative is we had young people that were recruited through public selection, and they designed running routes, and they ran through these cities with air quality monitors and with an app that captured photos, videos, audio, showing sources of polluted air, sources of clean air. And they really rallied, so each of the run leaders rallied and recruited a pack to run with them. And they used that opportunity to share why it's so important to them. And one of the things that we did was then they looked at the data they collected, and they use that to design interventions. So that they review the data they collected and said, well, what are the things that we're seeing here in our city? How does air quality differ? How does the quality of public space differ within and between cities? And they've used that to design an advocacy and activism campaign that we're doing in the run-up to COP27. So they've been doing runs again in these cities, in Accra, in Lagos, in Cape Town, but also beyond those cities. And on the 10th of November, which is when COP27 is happening in Egypt, the 10th of November is also Youth Day, and it's the Science Theme Day. And so what we really want to do is push, and we invite everyone to join this, is to push the agenda to show that clean air is really critical for both health and climate, and young people play a critical role in designing and shaping that future for a healthy climate resilient space.
Oh my goodness. Tolu, thank you so much for being on our Climate Optimism show. You embodied what we were trying to do, what we're trying to get over, and we wish you every success with all of your campaigns and your work. Thank you, Tolu, but as I say thank you to Tolu, I want to bring in another young climate activist from the founder of I Lead Climate Action Initiative. This is what she told us a few hours ago, Christiana, and I know you spend a lot of time with young climate activists. What do you make of what Adenike has to say?
As a passionate or advocacy for climate education, we get to find out that once you don't know that a problem exists, you can't solve it. So the first approach towards awareness is education. Educating people, young people, then expanding the horizon for climate justice.
Well, she's so right. Educating people is so important because it's the only way that we're going to get mobilization. Now, I think the difficulty around that, Femi, is to educate young people and also not so young people about the reality of climate change, which includes two pillars: the threat of climate change, but as we're discussing here, also the opportunity of addressing climate change. And unfortunately, most education is only on the impacts and the disasters of climate change. And we have not, I still have yet to see serious programs that also bring the opportunities. For example, we've just seen, Tolu has just talked to us about air quality monitors. What would happen if we have air quality monitors on every single cell phone in the world? We would have much more education about air quality and much more awareness about where air quality is being threatened and what we can do about it. So we have to have both the opportunity of addressing climate change as well as, of course, the threats and the impacts.
Christiana, I know you said a little bit earlier, you were talking to us about the power that people have, the power of community. And when I spoke to Kidus a little bit earlier on, he really embodied what it is that we're able to do, because sometimes we feel that the climate crisis is overwhelming. But this is what Kidus has to say about that. Here he is.
We know that every single piece of major legislation that's passed in U.S. history has been due to movement building. Whether we're talking about the Civil Rights Acts of the 50s or 60s or marriage equality, they would not have happened without people being in the streets over the course of years pressuring their politicians to do so. So when we look at the recent climate bill that's passed, the first one in U.S. history, we know that's the work of groups like Sunrise Movement pressuring officials to deliver for them.
Our final segment today is about community and how it lies at the heart of climate action. In Puerto Rico, the community-based organization Caso Pueblo is transforming the Central Mountains. Caso Pueblo's executive director, Arturo Masaldea, joins us now. Arturo, it is so great to have you, because what you do and what you're doing, what the community is doing, is community-based sustainable programs that really show us how do we live in the future, because you're already doing it in the present. When I want to when I think about the kind of programs that you're doing, what one would you want to share with our global audience, the one that's going to blow their minds and they're going to tell all their friends about tomorrow?
We have to integrate the agenda. We have been protecting the land, fighting for water security, and doing that requires to confront the fossil fuel economy. And in 1999, we established our first solar system. And the idea is to democratize energy generation at the point of consumption in which people can benefit directly from energy security. We have our main installation, Casa Pueblo, the radio station, the transmission tower. We built a solar cinema. We have been helping hundreds of houses that has chronic disease, people that requires energy security for medical purposes. We have done the barber shop and the pharmacy and the bakery and the lechonera and other places looking for economic activation. And as we're moving forward, transforming our energy landscape, we're becoming a reference for local development, thinking in people, thinking in engagement, education, and protecting our natural resources as well in a way that we are also better prepared to confront climate change in the Caribbean.
Christiana.
Bueno, Arturo, hola, qué gusto de conocerte. So wonderful to be here with you. One piece, Arturo, that you didn't speak to that I would love to invite you to is the resilience of renewable resources, how they are so much more resilient to the impacts of these amazing storms that the Caribbean and so many of the other areas of the world are having. And how please tell us, how long was Puerto Rico without electricity except Casa Pueblo because you had solar? It's just such a fantastic story.
After Hurricane Maria in Adjuntas, almost 4 months in the urban areas, the rural communities over 1 year without power. The central part of the island where most of the poverty regions are located, it was the last 30% in which energy was restored. So building energy resilience, we were able to reopen Casa Pueblo the day after. And the consequences of these hurricanes are very bad, but the reality is that the aftermath is what transformed a hurricane experience into a human disaster. A lot of failures from the public and private utility, and yet Casa Pueblo was producing power. We reopened, we became an energy oasis. People came here to recharge their equipment, dialysis therapy, respiratory machines. The radio station was on. We were able to deploy and respond, rebound right away because we were energy secure. That's what we have been fighting for, not only for Casa Pueblo, but for the whole community and the different elements of our community to also enjoy the benefits of producing power, clean energy at the point of consumption. And I'm so happy to see that there's other technologies, other options in the pipeline that will help strengthen configurations like the one we have been building in Adjuntas.
Arturo, I am so enjoying watching you because you have a solar swagger about you. It's like when the rest of Puerto Rico, they came to us to help them because we had the energy. We were able to help them. There's so much pride in what you're doing. Congratulations. Thank you for continuing to be a model for all of us watching around the world. And I'm going to take a little bit of your solar swagger and take it through the rest of my week. Arturo, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Christiana, before we go, on YouTube, people are having a conversation about the climate crisis. It is always a debate. One of our viewers is asking, what about the point of no return? Or does stubborn optimism say that we don't even use that phrase and we just get on and roll our sleeves up?
Well, we don't know, right? We don't know the point if we're going to get to the point of no return. Scientists have been telling us that we're getting horrendously close to going over thresholds that are going to be irreversible. But that is exactly the reason why we have to double down. That is exactly the reason why we need these kinds of stories that we've heard today, multiplied times 1 million, 3 million, 10 million, because we don't want to get to the point of no return. And here's the thing, we can stop this. We can actually reverse the trend of greenhouse gas emissions, which is currently still rising. We can reverse that trend to a decreasing trend of greenhouse gas emissions and thereby avert the worst of the climate crisis. But, Femi, scientists have been abundantly clear that we have to do that by 2030. So, yes, there are many wonderful stories, and we need to go exponential with them because we are getting very, very close to the deadline.
All right, Christiana Figueres, it's been such a pleasure being your co-host on the Climate Optimism Show. I really appreciate you. Have a look here on my laptop. These are two places I really want you to have a look at. Global Optimism. Look at what Christiana and her team, the work they are doing, and also an incredible podcast, Outrage and Optimism podcast. It will keep you entertained and educate you and inspire you as well. Thanks for watching today's show. I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.
Examining the headlines.
How big a breakthrough is this?
This is a historic moment for Alzheimer's research.
Unflinching journalism.
I can see the part of the tree where 2 of the bullets hit. They're about my head height.
Sharing personal stories with a global audience.
Nature is so much more than income for shareholders. It's the library of my people.
Explore an abundance of world-class programming on Al Jazeera.
Join Africa's premier trade and investment event in Côte d'Ivoire. Intra-African Trade Fair gives you access to more than 1,600 exhibitors and over 35,000 attendees from more than 75 exhibiting countries. Participate in trade and investment deals worth over $43 billion as business and government come together to explore business opportunities. Register now. Brought to you by the African Export-Import Bank, African Union Commission, AFCFTA Secretariat, and their premium partners, connecting African markets.
In-depth analysis of the day's headlines from around the world.
Do you think diplomacy still stands a chance?
I'm not very optimistic about any negotiation.
We were already in a bit of a crypto winter. It's going to get a lot colder.
Inside Story on Al Jazeera.
We understand the differences and similarities of cultures across the world. So no matter where you call home, Al Jazeera will bring you the news and current affairs that matter to you. Al Jazeera.
Progress or a serious mistake. Artificial intelligence is slowly invading every aspect of our lives. But very few of us really understand its capabilities, for better or worse. Al Jazeera explores the impact of AI accessing vast amounts of our personal data. Dataland on Al Jazeera.
South Korea's president calls for better air defense systems, a day after North Korean drones entered its airspace. I'm Sami Zaidan. This is Al Jazeera live from Doha. Also coming up, Taiwan changes its conscription rules after China sends military aircraft into its defense zone. Warnings the so-called blizzard of the century in North America is far from over. Tens of thousands are still in the dark. The UN warns more Rohingya refugees will embark on desperate journeys as a second boat arrives in Indonesia. South Korea's president says his country needs better air defense systems. Yoon Suk-yeol wants to create a special military unit with stealth drones. Meanwhile, the military has apologized for failing to shoot down North Korean drones in its airspace on Monday.
Mm-hmm. plug into Q2U, you'll most likely get a dialog box you'll see GarageBand recognizes it and wants to know if I would like to use the Q2U as my audio device. I can always change that later on in the preferences. So I'll hit use and I'm good to go. Now, if I do use it, it's probably going to use it for output as well. You're going to want to plug in your headphones to the bottom of the mic. If you want to have different input and output devices, you'll have to come in and edit GarageBand preferences. If you happen to have the microphone already plugged in before you start GarageBand, just here in the preferences audio MIDI tab, you'll go ahead and address the once you're ready to go, create a new audio track. And now, I've got some levels from my PC, ready to rock and ready to record. To get things going on a PC, you want to first plug in. Software, conferencing, and things like that, Skype, Twitch streaming, will all use your microphone. Let's take a look at how to set up Audacity. So once you open up Audacity, you go ahead and choose the Samsung microphone as your sound device. Right here is where you can choose your audio device. So as you see, I can switch the Microsoft Sound Mapper over to once I'm ready to go, I hit record, and there we go. I start recording, I can see my sound levels happening, the Q2U is being recognized and used as the sound device. And again, I can change the playback device to the Q2U so I can monitor it through there, or I can move the playback device to Windows computer and just monitor it through the computer. The choice is yours. For those of you that want to use audio, you want to get that set up. First, you're going to want to run the app audio. Have the mic already plugged in. Hopefully it detects it with the noise of audio system to start up. Once audio does starts up, you'll want to create a new empty template. So if you're using a template that might have all the audio track or something else, using empty is probably going to be the way to go. You can start from scratch and build up your own output. So save it up and see what you're doing. Now from here, the first thing I'm going to want to do is set up the CPU with the audio track. You're going to want to set up there, once you've done that, and you create an audio track, you'll be able to pick the CPU of the device. So I can go up here, to Project, click Add Track, and add a mono audio track. So right there you can see I have the Samsung CPU microphone selected. And if I were to hit record, I'd be good to go. Something you might want to consider is turning off audio tracks too. Because if you're using the Q2U playback device, feedback. So you might want to go to Studio, Audio Pass Through, this way, when you record on that track, and you go ahead and hit the record button under the transport control, you'll see that 1 and 2, you can ignore it, so it's not pulling back and playing yourself by studios. And then you can easily play back the track. Audio Desk is great if you're going to use multiple microphones or want to add in some background music track. It's a really advanced app and has a lot of capabilities. If you'd like to use the Q2U in a live situation as a handheld vocal mic, or if you want to record more than one microphone and use a mixer to mix them together, you're going to use an XLR cable instead of a USB cable. So what I'll do is I will unplug the USB cable and replace it with XLR. After you plug that in, then you'll want to take the microphone. So we don't do that for this one, so that's the one until you see anything I'm getting up there, maybe even edging into the yellow, but never going into the red. So I've got good levels for recording, and I'm ready to go ahead and start recording. I can program multiple microphones in this program, all using XLR.
Specifically, I am now recommending the Behringer Euphoria UMC line of audio interfaces. This is the UM2, which is available for like only $30, which is insane for such a high quality USB interface. Then this is the UMC 204 HD, which has two microphone inputs.